Two categories of contraband. So the first was the hazardous illegal. The other is excessive or altered items. In other words, items that they are allowed to have, but in a particular form or in a specified quantity. So let's start with excessive. Excessive amount of permitted items. Magazines, books, newspapers. They can have those things. They can. They can go to the library and check out a book. They can have a relative send them the book or a magazine from the publisher, a newspaper subscription from the publisher. They can do that. But we limit the number they can have. Wow, that must be some class.
Yeah, it must be a fun time when I was
I don't know. I know, right? Oh, hell no, that sounds like they're having fun. I'm not going to break that up. Magazines, books, and newspapers are limited in amounts for a variety of reasons. First off, you've got a small cell. Most of your prison cells are going to be 8 by 10 or maybe 8 by 12 at best. And you've got 2 guys in there with all of their stuff. So what you have is a small space that is already cluttered. And then when you allow this stuff to pile up, because you know it does. If you've ever had a magazine subscription or a newspaper subscription, you know that stuff piles up fast. And it makes an already cluttered area even more so. And everybody knows clutter gets on everybody's nerves, right? You, as officers, are going to have a vested interest in keeping the amount of property down. Books, magazines, newspapers, things like that. Because when you do cell searches, you have to move all of that stuff. Now let's talk about this for a minute. When you clean most of the time, unless you are an exception to the rule, when you clean most of the time, you just kind of give it a lick and a promise, don't you? Do you pick up every single thing and pick it up and vacuum under it and clean under it and pull the couch out? No, you don't. Maybe once a year when you do your spring cleaning. But the rest of the time, we just vacuum around it. And prisoners are the same way. When they clean their cells, they just sweep around it, they just mop around it, they don't pick it up. So what happens over a period of time is you get a lot of dust and dirt that accrues around those items that aren't being picked up and moved, right? Okay. Now you, the officer, go in to do a cell search. And cell searches are actually very physically active, and you can burn some calories because you are climbing and bending and moving and lifting and you know, you're moving a lot. So you're going to break a sweat. As you're climbing and moving and bending and everything, and as you're breaking a sweat and moving things, all of this stuff's going to go airborne. You with me so far? Now who knows what dust is made of?
Isn't it dead skin?
Mostly dead skin. Yeah, mostly. I mean, it's a lot of dead skin, dead human skin. You've got hair, you've got head hair, and you've got, you know, with men, chest hair, and arm hair, and armpit hair, and, yeah, other hair. And all of that's mixed in with the dust and a little bit of dirt. And now all of that is going airborne. And there you are, all sticky and sweaty. What do you suppose it's going to adhere to? Oh, isn't that fun? So the more of this you can minimize, the less of that you've got happening. And thirdly, these are paper items, which means that they can be fire hazards. And while prisoners do not have fire-making materials, at least they're not supposed to, they do. They make them. Okay. They get matches smuggled in, or they'll jump an outlet. Right? They'll short-circuit an outlet to get it to spark. Whatever they can do to light up their contraband cigarettes and stuff. So if this stuff were to catch fire, well, you can imagine how bad that would be. I fought one fire. A fire in a correctional facility is nightmare stuff. In fact, every once in a while, I still get a nightmare from this one. Right? Because a fire in a correctional facility has got to be right up there with riots and hostage takings. So we had this particular unit, and we just shut down everybody for the night. And we had a couple of young chuckleheads, you know, 17 going on 12 or 18 going on 12. And for whatever reason, they had some contraband matches, and for whatever reason, they thought it would be fun to have a match pitching contest underneath the crack of their door out into the day room where there was a stack of newspapers. Now, honestly, I don't think that they thought any further than that. Wouldn't it be fun? Well, one of the matches hit the stack of newspapers and it smoldered for a while and then it finally caught fire. So now what we've got is 20 guys all locked in behind closed doors. They can't get out. You probably know that it's not the fire that kills people in fires, it's the smoke. It's smoke inhalation. So once the fire gets going good, well, all of a sudden panic alarms in the various cells start going off. And we flip the camera in, lock it in to see what's going on down there, and it's black. I mean, it's all black. And right now, the smoke alarm, the fire alarm, everything is starting to go off too. And we're like, oh crap. A fire in a correctional facility. We're at minimum staff. So one person's got to stay in the control room at all times. That person stays in the control room. They call the fire department. Person number 2 heads into the climate control area. And what they're going to do is on our signal, they're going to hit the fans and evacuate the smoke. But you can't do that too soon because otherwise it's going to feed the fire oxygen. And the remaining 2 of us are going to go and fight that fire. This is the other time that I almost crapped myself in my career. So we're going down the hall, and the rule is you always grab something when there's an alarm. You don't ever go empty-handed to an alarm because you never know what. So I've grabbed a big pry bar, a battering ram pry bar thing. It was heavy as hell. Both of us got Scott air packs on, and my partner had grabbed a big fire extinguisher. Now, fortunately for us, he was a volunteer firefighter, and he insisted that we have regular fire drills on our shift. So everybody knew what to do. We were like a well-oiled machine. That was great. As we enter the corridor to that unit, all I can hear is men screaming and pounding on doors. And that's what I hear in my nightmares still. I hear the screaming, and you got the picture in your head, right? And it's the smoke, and it's all the carcinogens and all of the stuff that's burning and all of that, So you got the worst pictures in your head, and you're hearing all these men screaming. And my partner looks at me and he says, "You ever fought a fire before?" I said, "No." He said, "So here's what you're going to do." He said, "I want you to stand the door." He said, "I'm going to walk in there, and you won't be able to see me anymore. I'm going to disappear. I need you to talk to me. I'm going to go in there, I'm going to try to find the fire, and I'm going to put it out with the fire extinguisher." I'm like, okay. So it was the funniest thing. He opened the door, and it was like something out of a cartoon. There's like this wall of black in the shape of the door. It's just a wall of black, like ink. And he says, "Remember what I said, talk to me." So he goes in there, and I said, "What do you want me to say?" He says, "I don't give a shit. Tell me something. Talk to me. I don't care. Talk about the weather. Talk about sports. Just talk. I need to hear your voice." So I don't know what I said. And I remember him going in there, and I remember hearing him swear when he hit his shin on the picnic table in the middle of the day room. And it was black as pitch. And man, I had so much stuff going through my head, it was crazy. And the men are still screaming and pounding on doors and everything. So I hear him yell, "I found it. I think I got it. I think I got it." And I hear the fire extinguisher discharge several times, and the smoke starts changing color. And it goes from black to this nasty brown color, and then it kind of goes to a really disgusting green color, and then it morphs into kind of this yellowish color, and then finally it starts going white. And he yells to me, I still can't see him, he yells to me, "Get on the radio and tell him to hit the fan now." So I radio, I hear the fan engage, and whoosh, like in 5 or 10 seconds, everything's gone. It's just clear, because they were really powerful fans. Right about then, the fire department shows up, which was pretty fast. It was like, turnaround on this was like 4 or 5 minutes total. The fire department shows up, we get all the inmates evacuated, and out into an open area, and we check everybody for smoke inhalation and make sure everybody's okay, and thank God they were. Most of the guys that had the presence of mind to take their towels and wet them and wedge them under the doors, they must have been yelling that to each other because everybody had done it. So everybody was cool, everybody was okay, but that's one of those experiences you have that just leaves an indelible mark. This is why you don't allow too many books, magazines, and newspapers. It's flammable. Bedding, towels, pillows, they're allowed to have those things. But the problem is when they have too many, then we run short, okay? These things are items that we have a finite amount of in any correctional facility. We have X number of sheets, blankets, towels. If you've gone to a store lately and bought these items, you know that they're not cheap. And even though we buy them in bulk and they're not of the best quality, they're still not cheap. So, you've got your annual budget. This is all you can order. This is what you got. Now, we lose some of them just through regular laundering and wear and tear. We lose some of them to destruction. Inmates like to tear them up and make ropes and all kinds of other stuff out of them, clotheslines and things like that. So, that leaves us in a continual stage of almost semi-shortage, but not quite. So as long as we can collect them on a rotation and launder them and reissue them, there's not a problem. But when somebody starts hoarding, then we run short. Like, hoarding will cause that. If I said, for example, hey guys, I was on Facebook on break, and guess what I saw? I saw that there's going to be a toilet paper shortage in the Tri-Cities. So what are you going to do? You're going to get on your phones and tell everybody that go buy toilet paper right now. And by sunset, there will be a toilet paper shortage in the Tri-Cities because everybody's gone out and bought it all up and hoarded it. And now there's not enough to go around. And that's exactly what happens when inmates start doing that. Now you understand why they're doing it because they want to take some of that power back. That's really what contraband is all about, is power. Taking some of that power that they've lost back. Now they have some level of control over something in their life. So maybe they got 2 or 3 extra towels, or maybe they got some extra pillows or something. But the problem is then everybody else is shortchanged. The stuff doesn't grow on trees. We can't just go out into the courtyard and go, sheets, blankets, pillows. We can't do that. Food items, especially perishables. Now the stuff they buy in the commissary, there's nothing perishable there, trust me. There's so many preservatives in that. I think it's just a sneaky way to have the death penalty. And with all the chemicals and crap that we got in that food that they buy in the commissary. But coming back from chow hall, apples, oranges, butter, milk. And sometimes they bring that stuff back, they smuggle it back, and I get it. I like my coffee with cream. I don't want that nasty powdered stuff. That's disgusting. Plus, it's all chock full of chemicals. Ick. So I don't blame a guy for wanting to put some real honest-to-goodness moo juice in his coffee, right? So he smuggles back a little carton of milk so that he can put real milk in his coffee. I get it. But the problem is he doesn't have a refrigerator in his cell. And milk, when it's kept off ice, goes bad quickly. And if he's going to ingest that later, well, now next thing you know, he's got food poisoning, and we got a medical problem. The same with the butter pats, right? They sell honey buns in the commissary. Everybody knows honey buns taste better with butter on them. So you can't blame a guy for bringing some butter back from the commissary so he can put it on his honey bun. But again, the stuff goes bad. And fruits and all, breads, all that other stuff, it's a problem. Not only can it spoil and make the person very sick, it also attracts vermin. Fruit flies. Now, you always know when somebody's hoarding fruit because there are fruit flies. Regular flies, which lay eggs and produce maggots. Mice, cockroaches, ants, rats. Remember that whatever conditions a prisoner is kept in, we're working in those. And I don't know about you, but I'm not real keen on working with maggots and cockroaches and mice. You know what I'm saying? So again, we have a vested interest in this. We're not trying to be mean, taking these things away from them. We're not. The rules exist for a reason, and it's for everybody's safety. So when we find these things, yes, we've got to take them. Permitted items that have been altered for an unauthorized use. They're allowed to have it. Maybe they even bought it in commissary. But they have altered that item for an unintended use. Now we have a problem. So it could be toiletries or hygiene items. A stick of deodorant. You keep rolling that sucker up until the deodorant comes out. Then you got a hollow space in the bottom to hide your contraband. So a lot of prisons and jails have gone to clear view. Instead of being an opaque container, now it's a clear container and you can see. And that's eliminated a lot of problems, but of course it costs money. shampoo bottles. They stockpile shampoo bottles. Now, a shampoo bottle can be used for any number of things. I found a guy one time that had actually a recipe in his cell. It was great. I wish I would have kept it. On single batch brewing of Pruno. And it was in a shampoo bottle. So I found the Pruno in the shampoo bottle, and I found his recipe too. And it was actually not a bad one. You know, and I smelled it, and it didn't melt my nose hairs out either. It wasn't awful. So he was brewing single batch for himself. Okay, so you can do that. Other guys will take empty containers, you know, shampoo bottles or whatever, and they'll fill them with water and they'll put them in their pillowcase and they'll make weight bags to work out with. You know, and I get that. But the weight bag that you're working out with can also be, you know, you put that in the pillowcase, you can smack. Now you got a weapon too. So we can't have that. And shampoo bottles, even empty toothpaste tubes, can be used to squirt gun style. So what some inmates will do is they will save up in their toilet urine and feces for a period of time and let it really, you know, work, ferment, get really stinky and smelly. And then they'll fill that shampoo bottle or that empty toothpaste tube, and they'll wait for an unsuspecting officer to come by, and they'll go squirt. In Michigan, we call it dressing out, right? Being dressed out. And they do that. The next thing you know, right, you got hepatitis or some weirdo disease because of that. So no, you get your one shampoo bottle with the shampoo in it, and that's it. Bedding, clothing, no. Again, they can have sheets and blankets, and they certainly can have clothes. We don't want them running around naked. But here's what they do. They rip it up. Mostly it's not for any nefarious reason. Like, you know, not ropes to climb up a wall or something. Mostly they rip up stuff for clotheslines. They don't want to send their personal laundry out to the laundry because it can get lost and they'll never see it again. You know, socks, underwear, things like that. So most guys will hand wash these items in their sink. So okay, you've hand washed your items, great. Now where do you dry them? Because guess what we don't provide? Clotheslines. So they'll rip up sheets, blankets, things like that, and make a clothesline. And again, you understand that, but you know, you can't give them the green light to go ahead and destroy state property, which costs money. So they can make a clothesline. And of course, you know, they could be using it for a nefarious purpose, like, you know, escaping or hanging themselves or something like this. We can't have that. Clothing, a lot of times they'll rip up clothing for the colored thread. Some of these guys are so talented. They weave things. I have seen some of the most amazing work, crafts, jewelry, picture frames, I mean, you name it, I've seen it made from the strangest things. Sheets, blankets, clothing, stuff like that. But again, they're destroying state property, which we have in limited quantities. And we're going to have to replace and spend money. So, you know, you come across those things and you got to take them. Now again, be polite. Always give the artist their props. Wow, Joe, that's a really beautiful picture frame that I'm confiscating. That must have taken you hours to make. Nice work. Yeah, and then you take it. And they get it. I mean, it's a game. It's you know. Commissary items. And all of the stuff that they can legally buy in the prison commissary. People send them money, and then there's store day, and they can go and buy these items with the money on their account. Did you have a question?
When you confiscate the contraband, you just throw it away, put it somewhere safe?
We do, unless it's illegal. We just throw it away. We document it and throw it away. It broke my heart a few times, though. There was some really pretty stuff. The commissary items. Mostly what we see here is, well, a lot of times they'll save empty bags and bottles and things like that. Cans, obviously, they're metal and they can be shaped into weapons and things like that. So you really got to be on that. They get pretty clever, and most of the stuff they're making is not for, again, any nefarious purpose. They're not trying to do anything bad with it. So much of this is just quality of life. So this is a boom box made from an empty toothpaste box. There's a little plug there for an MP3 player. Prisoners can buy MP3 players and they can purchase from an assortment of songs to listen to, okay? Now, because prisons and jails are noisy places already, we certainly don't want to add to the noise by having, you know, 1,000 TVs and radios blaring. So the rule is, if you want to watch something on your TV or listen to something on your radio or your MP3 player, you have to have headphones. Well, now here's the thing. What if you want to throw a party? And you want to share your music with other people. How do you do that? Well, you make a boom box. And it works great. It projects the music right out. Everybody can hear it. There's another version of that you could make for yourself. Now that looks pretty scary, but it's not. It's called a stinger. And it is a quality of life item. We sell hot chocolate, canned soup, powdered coffee in the commissary. But what we don't sell are coffee pots to heat it up in. So all they have is tap water. And the tap water at best only gets a little bit over lukewarm. And that makes it very hard to have hot coffee, hot chocolate, hot soup. So what they'll do is they'll take a cord off of any electrical appliance, a fan or radio, whatever, and they'll strip off the ends. And they'll put a piece of metal on the end like you see here. It can be a paper clip, it can be anything, any stray piece of metal. They'll wire it on there. They plug it into the wall and then they drop the metal into their cup of coffee or soup or hot chocolate. It heats it up. This is great. I got this from one of my MDOC buddies. Looks like pop, but then you open it up. And if you look, right, see the false bottom? I'm going to go back here. False bottom there with coloring in the bottom too. Look at that. I know, it's genius, right? This is my favorite though. This is awesome. Ramen soup, right? This has got to be Michigan's death penalty. Have you ever looked at the ingredients on a ramen soup? Don't eat that shit. Oh my God, the sodium, the fat, the chemicals, don't eat that, ever. It'll kill you slowly. We don't have a death penalty in Michigan. We sell ramen soups in the commissary instead. So you look at that, and you think, wow, that looks like a ramen soup. What's the problem? I know, are you impressed? They took an empty box and taped the ramen or glued the ramen soup to the outside, and it looked just like ramen soup. The only thing I can think that the way they caught it must have been the weight, the heft. Because we've caught stuff like that before. We had a guy coming in from another facility, and we're checking through his toiletries, and he's got a tube of toothpaste. And it looks like a legit tube of toothpaste. Everything's crimped and sealed like it should. You open the end of it, and toothpaste comes out. But it didn't feel right, It didn't feel like it weighed what a tube of toothpaste should weigh. So we cut into it and found out that, yep, he'd put enough toothpaste at the front of it so that if you squeezed it, toothpaste came out. And he'd figured out a way to crimp the end of it. But what he had done is emptied the toothpaste out and cleaned it all out and put his contraband in there and figured out a way to crimp the end. And it looked like real toothpaste. And it was the heft that gave it away. So that's what I think probably happened here. The officer was going through the materials and everything, and wow, ramens don't weigh that much. That's all I can think. Because, you look at that, and it looks like a ramen soup, right? So it had to have been the way that it felt that gave it away. And look at that, cell phones, chargers, all of that stuff. Crazy, right? Tool control. We need tools in a prison. We got to fix stuff. Things break. Things need to be done. So we need tools. If we have tools, obviously we have to control them. So the best way to do it is to lock it in a cage. You can kind of see the cage there, see the chain link. And then you put it on a shadow board. So between those two things, the cage and the shadow board, it's pretty easy to control your tools. At a glance, you can tell what's missing. You trace the outline of the tool on the shadow board, and look right there, one of our rubber mallets is missing. And you use it in conjunction with a sign-in sheet or a sign-out sheet. And you can say, okay, mallet number 3 is missing, who's got it? And you go back to the sign-out sheet, and oh, yeah, Joe's got it. So Joe, you about done with that mallet? Now for more dangerous kinds of tools, like meat cleavers and knives and things like that in kitchen areas, not so much in the low security, again, we don't worry about them so much, but in the higher security levels, what they'll actually do is they'll put it on a cable, about a 2 or 3 foot cable, And they'll actually cable it to the prep table, and the inmate will use it and then turn it back into the officer. So, but you can see how that's a very effective way. All right, shakedowns. Do you know this word? Shakedowns refer to cell searches. Unannounced, periodic searches of inmates, their property, and their living quarters for one single purpose: to discover and eliminate contraband. We have 2 officers here that are shaking down a dormitory unit. Unannounced. We don't tell them when we're going to do it. Now, sometimes they get it in the wind anyway. You know, they develop some sort of a sixth sense, and they can tell. I don't know how, but they do sometimes. But unannounced. So, you know, you come in on your shift, and your sergeant says, okay, you know, you're going to do this unit and this unit today. So, I mean, we didn't even know. But somehow the inmates kind of, you know, they maybe anticipate it's coming because it's been a while. I don't know. So unannounced, we don't make any reservations. We don't say, men of 5 block, Tuesday, 4 o'clock, good for you? We're not going to do that. We're going to try to keep it a surprise because we don't want them to get rid of their stuff. We want to find it and get rid of it for them. Periodic means we don't just do it once and then never again. We do it on an ongoing basis, on and off. We search the inmates when they come out of their cell. We search all of their property and living quarters. And what we are doing is looking for contraband so that we can get rid of it. I wish I could tell you that all of these were exciting. They're not. Most of them are pretty boring and just a lot of hard work, and you're very dirty at the end. Because most of what we find are that second category of contraband. We find excessive amounts or altered items and nothing terribly dangerous. So when we do find something dangerous, it's pretty cool. It's a big deal. But it doesn't happen all that often. Here's another photograph. This is Saginaw County Jail now, one of the jail deputies searching one of the 15-man units, I think, here. And you can see he's looking under the surfaces. And he's using his flashlight. One thing you never want to do in a shakedown is use your hands. Never put your hands someplace you can't see. Because inmates will booby trap things, razor blades and stuff like that. Or they might have just been hiding something, like, you know, a needle they're injecting with or something like that. They're just hiding it, and you happen to, and guess what you just did? So we use flashlights and mirrors a lot. So I used to carry a little pocket-sized mirror in my shirt pocket. And with my flashlight, you know, you can put it under like that, and you can see. So here's the deal. You are literally going into somebody's house. This is their house. This is where they live. This is where they keep all their stuff. You're going into their house, and you're going through all of their personal property. Their letters from home, their socks, their underwear, their sheets, their blankets, their pillows, their food. And you're looking for contraband. So when you go in there, don't be that officer that says, oh, well, they're just low-life criminals, and trash the cell. Okay, don't do that. Treat the inmate property with respect. Because here's the thing. They know who searched their cell. And if you're that officer that goes in and trashes everybody's cell, you're going to get that reputation. And God help you if anything ever goes down in your facility. If there's a riot or a hostage taking, because you'll be the first one they take out. Treat the inmate property with respect. Imagine if this were you, and somebody was coming into your house to go through all of your stuff. How would you feel? Would you not feel a little violated? And even though it's a routine thing for inmates, guess what? They feel a little bit violated too. You're going through all their personal stuff. Now, you can do a good search without trashing the cell. You can let them know that you were there. move things around a little bit. But there is no reason to take the foot locker and dump it all over the floor. You know, to mix the dirty clothes with the clean ones. You're going to have to climb up and check upper areas. But do you have to stand on their pillow where they put their head and their face? No, you don't. Take the pillow and the pillowcase out and then set it aside. Take the sheets in bed and go through them, set them aside. And then if you're vertically challenged like me and you need to reach someplace high that you can't reach, fold that mattress over once the sheets and blankets are off of it and stand on it. So you're going to put your dirty feet on their mattress, sure, but all the sheets and blankets are off and it's on the back side. You had to lift the mattress anyway. So, you know, you can climb up on that and get some extra height and go and do your thing. And then flip it the other way and look under it there. And then you can take all the sheets and blankets and everything and just put them back on the bed. Now, nobody says you got to remake the bed. You don't have to refold the clothes, none of that. You don't have that kind of time. They do. But you don't have to throw them on the floor. You don't have to stomp all over them. You don't have to mix all that stuff together. You can do it with respect, okay? Put them in a pile. The inmate will come back in and remake everything. You know, don't tamper with their food. Don't smash their potato chips. I mean, none of that stuff. You don't need to do that stuff. That's just, pardon my French, being an asshole. If you're one of the officers that shows respect, give respect, get respect. That's kind of a catchphrase in corrections, and we'll be saying that a lot more. Give respect, get respect. If you're an officer who respects inmate property, they're going to respect you for that. They know that you have a job to do and that you're going to be looking through their things. They get that. But you don't have to trash the cell. You don't have to tear through their property and make things miserable for everybody. You just don't. So imagine if this were you. Imagine when you're in there doing that, if the shoe were on the other foot, how would you feel? And conduct your search in that way. If you find stuff, and you will, mostly, like I say, just excess stuff, document it. Everything gets written down. So most of the stuff is going to be what we call minor rule violations, not a big deal. So if it's a minor, you're going to discuss it with the inmate. I had one guy, I was searching his cell, and I don't know, I think I pulled like 3 or 4 pillows out of there, and a bunch of extra towels, and a couple extra blankets and stuff. You know, it was kind of like the mother lode of hoarding. And I pulled it all out, you know, and he came back in, and he marches into his cell, and he spins around there. Who the F searched my cell? You know, I'm going to be all mad and intimidating and everything. And I walked right up to him. I said, I did. You want to talk about it? I said, because I got this and this and this and this and this. Are we talking misconduct ticket here? Oh, well, no. If you get a reputation for being fair and treating people decently, you know, you don't have to worry about any of that kind of stuff. So you document it, you talk about it. Hey, you know, a little coaching session here. You know, you can't have all of this stuff because of this, that, and the other. Now, if it becomes an ongoing problem, that's why you document it. So next month, they get shook down again. A different officer does it, and they find a whole bunch of stuff. Oh, well, I didn't know I couldn't do that. Yeah, you did, because last month so-and-so talked to you about this. And now you can write them a misconduct or use, you know, what we call a progressive discipline system. If it is a major violation, that's drugs, that's weapons, things like that, typically you have a choice. And it depends on your correctional facility, their administration, and it depends on the local prosecutor. Some prosecutors are really great about this stuff, and they go, oh yeah, a crime is a crime. It doesn't matter where it's committed. If it's committed behind bars, no matter. Go ahead and file charges. We'll press charges, we'll prosecute. And other prosecutors are kind of dinks, and they say, well, you know, they're criminals. You kind of knew that they were going to do that stuff, so you guys deal with it. We're not going to prosecute. So it depends on your prosecutor, and it depends on your prison administration. So sometimes you find things that you could prosecute for, and you just don't. Sometimes it's just easier to deal with it in-house. So a lot of times we do. So we deal with it through major violation process, which we'll talk about when we get into legal issues. Or in some cases, we may initiate legal proceedings. Depends on your facility. Does that make sense?